back to Orchid Time. Today I'd like to introduce my Prosthechea cochleata. This orchid is also called the Encyclia cochleata and the Epidendrum cochleatum, I believe. And these are all old names. Prosthechea is the current classification. This is one of the most recent acquisitions I have made. I have only had this orchid for 4 months. I got it in February from Hausermann's, and it is blooming for the first time right now. So that's very exciting. I got this as a plant of about this size. It's grown a little bit since I've had it, but it was about this size in a tiny seedling size pot. And you may be noticing a pattern from my mentioning this in previous videos, but whenever I see an orchid in a seedling size pot that's clearly outgrowing it, as long as there's nothing else wrong with it, I just have to rescue it from that situation and take it home and pot it up immediately. So that is what I did. When I got this cochleata, it was a bit dehydrated. Here's a picture of what it looked like when I got it. And the first thing I did was let it soak for a bit in its pot, just to get it some water. And then shortly afterward, I was able to pot it up into this size pot. So I repotted it at some point in March, shortly after getting it. And as you can see, it is already starting to outgrow this pot. Now, while it was potted in this situation, it is in a fine bark mix that I also get from Hausermann's. It did rehydrate very well, and all of these pseudobulbs plumped fully. However, since spiking, that it seems to have been a little more stressed and needed more water. I haven't fully adjusted to its new watering requirements, so it is wrinkling several pseudobulbs right now. I'm not sure if that is purely from just needing more water, or if this always happens when it blooms. Like I said, this plant is quite new to me, and I don't have any like it. The closest thing I have would be Oncidiums, which I have not seen desiccate quite like this when they spike. So probably I just need to step up watering now that it is both blooming and the weather is warm. However, up until the last couple of weeks, it has been just growing and working on its flower spike and looking very happy. You can see by some of the pleated leaves that we have here that it was growing right before I got it, especially the one here, that it was quite dry in its tiny pot at the nursery. And the leaves it has grown since, let's see if I can find some, like these, are doing a lot better. So that's encouraging. So Encyclia cochleata is said to be a very easy care plant and very beginner friendly. And also, if you get the care right, it's supposed to bloom almost continuously. And as you can see, it has more and more buds developing at the very tip of the flower spike. This is already more buds than I saw when this first flower opened. So I'm really hoping that if I get the watering right and keep it happy, that it will keep blooming for me. As you can see, the flowers are upside down compared to most other flowers. These down here are the petals, and this is actually the lip. It's commonly called the cockleshell orchid because of the shape of the lip, but it's also called like the squid orchid or octopus orchid, and that's what I see when I look at these blooms. Looks like a school of squids or octopuses. And that's why I got it. I think these are adorable. One thing that doesn't come across in pictures very well, and I'm not sure if it's coming across on camera, is the coloring of the octopus head part of the flower, the lip. So in pictures, this sometimes looks like a muddy brown, but it isn't. On my individual, it starts off purple when the flower first opens, and you can see here the back is sort of a burgundy now. But when it first opens, the inside here is also like a burgundy purple, and the longer it's open, the more yellow it gets. Get that to focus. Really pretty coloring. As I mentioned, for the time being, I have this orchid potted in a fine bark mix, which has some charcoal and moss in it. I'm not sure that this is sufficiently water retaining, and in the future I might add a bit more sphagnum moss just to keep it happy, especially if it's going to need more water as it is blooming. I am keeping it on a windowsill indoors, and it is a northwest windowsill, which has pretty bright light during the day and then some direct sun when the sun is setting. It's just at the ambient room temperature of the house, which here in the summer, we let get into the low 80s Fahrenheit before our air conditioning kicks in. I've been watering it once every 5 days or so up until this point, using just tap water, and I may need to step that up, as I've been saying. However, I am having some problems with fertilizing this guy, and if you're familiar with Prosthechea cochleatas, I would love to hear your input on this. Most of my orchids do well with MSU fertilizer for tap water, specifically for Lake Michigan water that we get here in Illinois as tap water. My Orchid Society actually has a specially formulated form of the MSU fertilizer that takes into account what we have in our tap water. And I usually use it at either half or full strength, depending on the orchid. This guy does not like that. Every time I water, every time I fertilize, excuse me, I have some leaf yellowing, which suggests to me that the concentration of the fertilizer is too high. And even though I flush the watering before the fertilizing, and I water with plain tap water between fertilizing, it's still not happy. I've decreased the concentration of the fertilizer more and more every time I have fed it in the last 4 months, but it still shows some leaf yellowing when I feed. Kind of similar to how my Oncidium Twinkle shows brown spots after every feeding, regardless of how low fertilizer concentration I use. So if you have experience with this plant, with feeding it, and you use MSU fertilizer, please let me know what concentration your plant likes. Or if you use a different fertilizer, let me know, because I would like to keep this guy happy. And it seems that any amount of fertilizer is a bad amount of fertilizer, even with thorough flushing between feeding sessions. So that is the only problem I'm having with this guy right now, and I would appreciate your input. So other than that, this Prosthechea cochleata has been, so far for the last 4 months, a very easy care orchid that I highly recommend. It's not fragrant. I've heard that other related orchids sometimes have a fragrance. This one does not. However, the flowers are adorable, and I highly recommend this guy to you if you don't already grow it. So this has been Prosthechea cochleata, also sometimes called Encyclia cochleata. Please let me know in the comments if you also grow this plant and what your experience with it has been, or if you have any tips for me. If you'd like to see more of my orchid videos, please subscribe or say hi to me on Instagram, where I post about my orchids and my garden. My Instagram handle is in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.